can see we go into a lot of sample prompts, right? So you can see for chief medical officers, for example, and then some of the things we have, using Copilot suggests 5 criteria for selecting external partners that align with our hospital's mission to expand rural patient access. So just giving an idea of just how detailed you could get, right? So a lot of, for folks that aren't aware of it, there's a designation for hospitals in rural areas and smaller communities. There's literally a designation as rural. And when that happens, it opens up additional funding for the hospital. So for example, if you're a hospital in Vermont, you might get extra funding for helicopters so that you can get out into the woods and rescue people. And so it's sort of and so what you're seeing here is just a great example of where the executives are not just able to ask about generally what hospital, but really diving into the details of what are the specifics as it relates to rural hospital. And then you can see we go into a lot of sample prompts, right? So you can see for chief medical officers, for example, and then some of the things we have, using Copilot suggests 5 criteria for selecting external partners that align with our hospital's mission to expand rural patient access. So just giving an idea of just how detailed you could get, right? So a lot of, for folks that aren't aware of it, there's a designation for hospitals in rural areas and smaller communities. There's literally a designation as rural. And when that happens, it opens up additional funding for the hospital. So for example, if you're a hospital in Vermont, you might get extra funding for helicopters so that you can get out into the woods and rescue people. And so it's sort of and so what you're seeing here is just a great example of where the executives are not just able to ask about generally what hospital, but really diving into the details of what are the specifics as it relates to rural hospitals. So everybody in this group that attends a meeting is going to get a complimentary copy of this guide. So this is our 2nd year in a row doing it. We publish it as a Kindle book. We pretty much distribute it for free, but we do offer it as a Kindle book as well. And is one of the benefits of being involved in the community. I predict it's a $2 trillion opportunity just for Microsoft alone. I call it enterprise AI. That's where it gets even more critical, right? So what we have to acknowledge is, we're going to have a ton of models, right? Our agent. So we have a CMS compliance agent to help hospitals stay compliant with CMS. And then we have another agent that helps maximize RVUs, which is really important to hospitals as well.
A second issue that arises is called overloaded prompts. Trying to ask too many things at once confuses the AI sometimes. It's getting better, as I've also said. Today is the worst day every AI will ever be, because it'll always get better every day. It's getting better and better. Person or the actual personality persona, you can actually put that information in there, and it will adhere to those criteria in your instructions, so that you can take a particular approach. Like if someone has a particular approach to responding to you or responding to a particular situation, you can put that in there as an instruction so that it responds similarly to what you're wanting to do, so that you can gain the insights that you need, so that when you are presented with the actual person conversation, you can go about it in a better way, a more efficient way.
Ideas. I'm going to start by talking about why it's important, like why we should even care about prompt engineering. Because in all fairness, to many in the room, engineering may just be what you're doing in Copilot today, right? And sure, we're picking up some tips and tricks, but but hopefully what you'll see is there's a lot of reasons why these prompts are important, and it goes beyond just the chat, the typical chat interface with Copilot. Keep in mind, you do want to be careful about the corporate data thing, right? Like we're really sensitive about that. We don't put any of our IP up there. Like usually what I'm putting up is stuff that we've published anyway. So for example, we've got a whole folder of product literature, right? Like that's realistically, we hand that out at conferences. I'm okay loading up the workspace with that information, but I do want to be clear, be very careful before you start, obviously you don't want to dump it, especially healthcare. I mean, for goodness, I'm hopefully the folks in healthcare already know this. And you talk about PHI and personal information. Yeah, so let's just say hopefully folks are aware of this. And I think they are. From my experience, I think a lot of the hospitals so far are being more cautious than not. Like they're just blocking the IP ports and stuff right now because you can't trust, we're all going to do it, right? If you have it, you're going to end up asking it some questions. Maybe you're not dumb enough to ask it a patient.
And first off is garbage in, garbage out. If you have bad prompts, like a bad prompt is how can we improve patient outcome? A better prompt might be, what are the 3 proven strategies to reduce readmission rates for post-surgical patients? So the wording that you use when you enter your prompts is critical to getting the answers that you want.
I'll nail my LinkedIn profile, right? And then I'll go to ChatGPT and I'll say, remember this about me. And then I'll cut and paste my LinkedIn profile. And then it burns that into memory. And you can even see it. As a matter of fact, you should get used to checking it just like your browser history in the old days, because all your memories are stored there.
The definition is involving asking the AI to take a specific role or persona to respond in a manner aligned with the role's expertise, perspective, and style. The style is particularly effective when seeking domain-specific insights, contextual advice, or nuanced responses that require empathy, creativity, or a particular common approach. So in use cases for this is like if you want to have the AI be the board, if you're presenting a pitch to the board and you want to present your case, you can have it mock as a particular person, how their style is, or how their approach is to doing a particular thing. You tell it to take the role. You can actually put in, if you have information about
it. What's really beautiful about Copilot Studio, by the way, I love this as a software developer engineer, they eat their own dog food. Meaning when you go to Copilot Studio and you want to create a Copilot, you're literally using a Copilot as the user experience. So kudos, props. I love to see that. So what do? Well, I upload the PDF. I go to first I ask the AI, where is the paper, right? And then once I find the paper, I actually download the thing. I pull it right down to my desktop. And then I go to Perplexity and that workspace that's already set up and trained to talk to me about this stuff. And I'm literally clipping that thing right to the chat prompt. And now that chat is literally grounded in that document. Microsoft supports DeepSeek now. They're actually, it's sort of funny, that got so twisted in the news. They're actually a Microsoft partner. And the mysterious lab is MCT, just like this. It's not really anything secret or fancy. And they actually did some really cool work. And now you can actually use that model. It's actually hosted in Azure. If you go to Azure Foundry Services, you can use DeepSeek for whatever you need to. But the reason why I mention it is because it's also in Perplexity. So if you go to the research, it used to actually specifically say DeepSeek R1, but now it only says research, but that's using the model behind the scenes. What was so cool is it generated all of the code and objects and classes based on that original database schema that I get. See, that's where it just threw it to a whole nother level. And yes, I had bugs. There were a lot of that. But I'm telling you, that effort in the past would have it would have taken 3 months just to go back and forth with the dev team. Just in communicating requirements, we would have wasted literally, I know for a fact, because I've been doing this for 30 years, that was at least 3 weeks worth of work that we were able to, crunch. But let me go because I want Lance to get on here. So one of the cool things we started working with, this is another Microsoft partner. It's called Perplexity, built on top of OpenAI, but they let you use link to other LLMs as well. And so one of the cool things they have something called spaces. So what you do is you create a space, and then what you can do is you can give it instructions, getting back to the prompts again, right? So if I click on this, you can see I'm giving an assistant prompt saying, hey, you're RealActivity Copilot, an advanced assistant. You're powered by Microsoft Semantic Kernel, blah, 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 blah. Beautiful. Love it. By the way, wow. So what I did, I created a space for my sales team. They're always asking all these questions with this, that, what about this feature, pricing that. So I just create one of these spaces. I point it to all of our product documentation, all pricing, everything, and give it a system prompt like, hey, you're here to help the salespeople. And it's brilliant. Now they're just up there, tell me about this feature, blah, 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 blah. Now, keep in mind, you do want to be careful about the corporate data thing, right? Like we're really sensitive about that. We don't put any of our IP up there. Like usually what I'm putting up is stuff that we've published anyway. So for example, we've got a whole folder of product literature, right? Like that's realistically, we hand that out at conferences. I'm okay loading up the workspace with that information, but I do want to be clear. And so there's some that we organize, but I also want to share some that other folks in the local community are organizing. This one is actually one of my favorite events. I've been speaking at it for a few years now, but I've known about the event for some time. The reason why is because I'm a developer, I'm a coder at heart. So this is for developers. It's a code camp. It'll be at the Cambridge Microsoft office. It's I haven't tested it in a couple of weeks, but if I say, where should I ride this weekend? It should, yeah. So, okay. So now it's telling me, okay, wow, Killington, fresh powder, 20 inches. Obviously you want to double check that. That sounds amazing, but assuming that's true, that sounds amazing. Okay. So that, you see the point again, we're not really here to talk about agents, but it's really prompt engineering. And we just want to acknowledge that, again, prompt engineering extends beyond the chat interface. The very next example is doing it with agents.
So why AI prompt engineering matter for healthcare leaders? Understand, it helps you understand AI's role in decision making. There's an importance or effective AI interaction that's needed, and leaders need to be able to use AI for better insight.
Okay, let's start small. Let's solve a big problem. Protocol and biomarkers, getting it right the first time is a big problem, and we can solve it with one model. And then you start tacking on the other models, as you said, as you build a more global, robust system. But I feel like adoption isn't going to happen if you give the big bang effect, and you're not going to be able to tease out the variables to say which one worked and which one didn't.
Meetings are the last Wednesday of the month. And essentially our mission of the Boston Healthcare Cloud and AI community, or BOSHUG, brings together a diverse group of innovators united by a shared vision to harness the power of cloud computing and AI to improve health outcomes, enhance patient experiences, and foster collaborative innovation for providers, members, and researchers. So that's essentially at our core what we hope to do with our meetings and groups.
So the second one is called role play prompting, which in a sense gives you, once you get to that point where you're conversing with the AI and you understand how to talk to it and how it talks to you, then you can ask it to play a particular role. This is very useful. I'll go through some of the use case here in a minute. It's very useful though in having someone to ping ideas off of and to see what information you might miss or you might gain from having the AI be a particular stance or a particular position in an argument that you're making. And then maieutic prompting, like I said, challenging assumptions for deeper thoughts, putting those questions out there that are going to test the AI and give you the answers that you need, breaking it down to validate the information that you're wanting to receive and wanting to get from the AI, rather than just in one long prompt. You can break it down into steps.
So so some of the instructions I gave it is to use the tone and style of Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I was having fun, right? But then I did say, hey, be an expert snowboarder, because the conditions can be different with skiing and snowboarding. And then I did also point it to the biggest Reddit for snowboarding, just so it could pick up like snowboarding nomenclature and lingo, etc. And so, it works pretty well. Like if I let's test it. I haven't tested it in a couple of weeks, but if I say, where should I ride this weekend? It should, I will literally open up a cursor window, because now the code base is solid. And I'll be like, tell me about the agentic properties of this and why is this valuable to hospital? Boom. And it literally goes into my code and highlights functions and why, and explains how that can be done. So I'm even using it now beyond just the technical aspect of programming. But once you have that piece in place, again, then play with it and say, okay, how do I take this to the next level, et cetera, et cetera. So I would submit that if you use the approach I'm suggesting, you will 10x your productivity. But there will always be a human in the loop. And so that's the quick answer, but it's outside the scope of what we're talking about today.
But I think it brings up a good point. There's different types of, and we're talking about the predictive analytic and decision-making models right now, versus that's a image recognition.
Exactly.
Model. And those have to be built completely different. There's multiple different, driving an automatic car is a different model, right? And so I think that's actually important for healthcare executives to understand
100%.
When they go to buy a technology AI solution.
What's interesting? I programmed 3 tools now that when I was doing that week heads down, I had Cursor open because Cursor can't do everything, obviously. And then you need to be able to flip in. I needed to be able to slip into Visual Studio to be able to see my whole web API and see all the classes and structure in Visual Studio. And then I had to have VS Code open too, so I could see my front end. So I had my Node front end open and in VS Code, I had my in middle tier and then I had Cursor in the background. And so Cursor was like my buddy, you know. And that's a different model, first of all. It's not generative AI. So usually when we're looking at an X-ray image, it's a traditional machine learning model, and we're doing a progression prediction. And then based on that prediction, then we might kick in Gen AI and determine some workflows and agents to kick off, et cetera, different levels. So the way I think about it is you have Copilot, which is like the consumer-based front-facing one that everybody can access. You go to copilot.microsoft.com. And then you have Microsoft 365 Copilot. That's the one where you start paying $30 a month, and basically it's connected to your Office tenant.
Billington's website say that there's 6 inches of snow within the last week.
Within the last week? And what did that say, 20 or something 20 like that? Yeah. So it needs work. And by the way, I'm not here to impress you with my Copilot Studio. But let me go, because I want Lance to get on here. So one of the cool things we started working with, this is another Microsoft partner. It's called Perplexity, built on top of OpenAI, but they let you use link to other LLMs as well. And so one of the cool things they have something called spaces. So what you do is you create a space, and then what you can do is you can give it instructions, getting back to the prompts again, right? So if I click on this, you can see I'm giving an assistant prompt saying, hey, you're RealActivity Copilot, an advanced assistant. You're powered by Microsoft Semantic Kernel, blah, 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 blah. He's been really diving into a lot of training on prompt engineer and helping develop courseware, training for clients, I think all over the world, certainly all over the US. And so we're really lucky to have him here today to talk about some of the stuff that he's been excited about in prompt engineering.
They're starting out with, I want to be able to write the perfect protocol and get my biomarkers right. Okay, that can be predictive analytics. But if they're moving on to assessing data, that's probably a different model, and they have to pick the right tool. And 100%. So I think that's really important for people to understand is what is the problem you're trying to solve so that you use the right AI.
100%. Tool. Started as a prompt guide, like 2 years, like when Gen AI first came out, it was announced like 2 months before HIMSS. And we were going to HIMSS and we knew about Gen AI, but we didn't know what to bring with us. And so to test the Copilot at the time, we're like, hey, what should we do? And it's like, hey, do a prompt guide. And so the next thing I know, we had like 250 prompts and we were off to HIMSS, you know, and gosh, it's been a whirlwind ever since then, since that day. And it just evolved since then. So then that was pretty generic, but then Microsoft released Copilot, which we were really excited about. So we switched the guide to be a Copilot guide. So initially it was ChatGPT. It was just 250 prompts. When Microsoft released Copilot, then we ported everything into Copilot. And then after a year, we decided to do the 2025 version, and we turned it more into a book where we actually have some learning up front about prompt engineering and some things that you might want to know. So by the way, the audience here are healthcare executives, but these prompts are very applicable to anybody working in the administration and operations side of healthcare. So they're not clinical, just to be clear, they're not clinical based prompts. That's not what we're going to look at today. This is more on the administration and the operations side.
Is there any way for it to actually book the hotel?
Yeah, sure. It could if I took time to build that out, but I just have it. And that's what my talks will be about at the next couple of events. But essentially what you need to do is agents use actions, and you would essentially need an action that would book the hotel room, and then the AI would just know when to call that agent at the appropriate time.
How many? Okay, I got a couple more minutes here, but I want to talk. Okay, role play probably why it works. It embodies expertise. It has contextual-driven solutions. It emphasizes strategic thinking. It directs the AI to consider adoption challenges, compliance, and patient outcomes. And this is for that particular prompt. And it engages decision makers. It'll be tailored to both executive operational teams, making it actionable across all levels. So because you put the level of detail in the persona and then presented your questions in that way, or your pitch per se, it's able to provide you the data for that pitch that will be contextual to what you told it needs to be, that you're going to represent when you go to that healthcare. And it's a great way. It's perfect for healthcare and health tech professionals driving change in the sector. This can be used for all sorts of things, from research to operational efficiency to clinic efficiencies, and from all levels, from frontline workers all the way to executives. So it's a good tool to be able to do, and a good method. All right, the last one here I'm going to talk about
just a second,
prompting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
So
Sure.
It's possible you can take it after the end of discussion about the prompt.
AI revolution in healthcare. There's all sorts of things going on from all levels of clinical decision making to policy development, helping in administrative efficiencies and in healthcare innovation. I've been posting on LinkedIn every week some of the new innovations that have come out with AI in healthcare. They're very, very innovative, and it's on the forefront of from the head to the tail in everything in healthcare.